The Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, is today meeting with her counterpart from New Zealand, Nanaia Mahuta. They are expected to discuss bilateral relations between the two countries, as well as the situation in Africa, Ukraine, Russia, women empowerment, science and technology. Nuclear disarmament and UN Security Council reforms are also part of the agenda. For more on this, we speak to our SABC News reporter, Lulama Matya. Lulama, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. Speak to us about this meeting that will be taking place between the two.
Good morning, Aldrin, and welcome to Cape Town. Yes, the minister and her counterpart now are locked in a meeting discussing the issues that you've mentioned. But before that, they met the media for opening remarks that the two ministers made. The Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, starting by acknowledging New Zealand. In New Zealand, the Netball World Cup is currently on here in South Africa at the ICC. We are just opposite the ICC at the Westin Hotel. South Africa played New Zealand. They played a draw, but New Zealand is proceeding to the semi-finals. And South Africa is not. So the minister congratulating New Zealand, but she's clear that when it plays South Africa, her blood is South Africa. Besides that, Aldrin, the minister, the history of South Africa dates back during the apartheid era. Minister Pandor acknowledging the role that New Zealand has played in the liberation of South Africa, when it comes to sport and other issues. When South Africa was isolated in the rest of the world, New Zealand was part of the countries that were isolating South Africa. Minister Pandor acknowledging that. She's also saying that the former president and late President Nelson Mandela, when he visited New Zealand for the first time in 1995, as the then president of the country, he also acknowledged the role that New Zealand has played in the liberation of South Africa. The minister saying that those relations between the two countries are still being strong. When we're talking about trade relations currently, it's about 3 billion rand in favor of New Zealand. The minister also saying that South Africa has relaxed some of its visa requirements when it comes to New Zealand. People from New Zealand who are here in the country, touring the country for a period of 3 months, can come to South Africa without applying for visa. So the two ministers now are locked in a meeting, cementing and mapping a way forward around those issues that you've mentioned, the issues around Africa, as well as Ukraine and Russia war, climate change and its impact in the continent, as well as the rest of the world, as well as New Zealand as well. So those are the issues that the two ministers now are meeting. We will meet them after that to hear what is it that they have agreed on, besides the numerous agreements that the two countries are working on right now. Aldrin.
And a quick final one, Lulama. Is there any discussion on the agenda around how New Zealand can, for instance, assist South Africa with its electricity crisis?
Well, of course, Aldrin, that's the most talked about thing when it comes to that. South Africa Eskom is continuing rolling out load shedding. Its various stages depending on grid capacity. So the issue of energy, of course, is one of the topics that the two countries are going to talk about as well, because even on the issue of climate change, we know that now the future is about carbon free, is about green energy, which will have a lesser impact on global warming and issues around that. So that is part of the discussion, Aldrin, because the two ministers will talk about climate change and its devastating impact on Africa, as well as the rest of the world. We know that South Africa and New Zealand are on the same hemisphere, so most of the time their climate is the same, and issues that are affecting South Africa do impact on New Zealand. So that is part definitely of the discussion as to how and when it's going to happen. That's what we will be expecting to hear from them when they're coming back to brief us after their closed meeting. Aldrin.